Hey folks, Papa Boris here, reviewing another Through the Ages game from the 2025 World Championship. This is the second third player game to finish. It was against Sakic and Sheeter. I'm the first player here. I grabbed Boudica from this sort of crappy round one board. I think you got to take a leader here. I mean, you could take the rich land just for a rock and be flexible, but I think taking a good leader is fine. And as you know, I don't really like Homer. I'm not saying he's bad. I just personally would rather not be limited to having to finish my wonder before replacing my leader, and Boudica's a perfectly fine leader, so I grab her. Sakic decides to pass on Homer and grabs Colossus, which I think is a fine wonder. Nothing wrong with this move. Sheeter makes a weird move, though. Sheeter grabs Engineering Genius A. I really disagree with this. This is 3 actions for 2 rocks. Yes, Engineering Genius in the Antiquities is a really sexy card because it helps with your wonder and it gives 2 rocks, but I think paying 3 actions for it makes no sense. Here, you either suck it up and take Homer and Colosseum, or you take Cleopatra if you want to spend 3 actions to get a good leader, or hell, Confucius. Either of those would be better than Engineering Genius. Or alternatively, you could make some kind of a move like Colosseum and Rich Land to get a rock and a wonder, and then wait to grab a leader later. I think this is like 5th or 6th or 7th on the list of good drafts here, so I do think that Sheeter made a mistake. We're going to pass the turn here. It's, to me, my first turn is incredibly boring. We all hate the Hanging Gardens, of course. It's the wonder we all love to hate. So I just play my leader, build a mine, raise population, put the other wonder under construction, no matter what other AJ wonder, literally any other AJ wonder here that isn't Hanging Gardens, I would have taken over Hanging Gardens, and then we pass the turn. Sakic, on his turn, pays 2 actions for Confucius. I do think this is a strange play. I mean, I love Confucius. That science is great. But Cleopatra, man, she's a great leader. You can't go wrong with free rocks. That's so good. And, you know, obviously, like, if the actions were switched, sure, I might take Confucius. But whichever one of these is the one for one action, I think you take that one. And I'm happier to have Cleopatra than Confucius anyway. I don't think this is a horrible play because Confucius is solid, but I do think it's a bit strange. Anyway, he plays Confucius, builds a mine, and he's exposed now. If we get the free temple event, he won't be able to make a temple. Had he played Cleopatra for 1 action, he could have also raised population here. Sheeter on his turn grabs Hippocrates, which is a great leader. Love the guy. Some people don't like him. Among my friends, I have 1 or 2 friends who think he's bad. I think he's great. I think free yellow tokens is a completely fair trade for the value of an Age A leader, because Age A leaders, you know, give pretty minimal benefits and they don't stick around for long necessarily. So getting something that affects you for the whole game to the tune of basically 2 extra yellow tokens is phenomenal. Sheeter plays Hippocrates. He's actually, you might notice, he's actually missing an AJ wonder. So he paid 3 actions for Engineering Genius and then did not get a wonder. So this is, you know, part of the problem. He basically got nothing from the draft so far. He raises population, builds mine, all perfectly normal, and then we pass the turn. So on my turn, I have an event, or I don't have an event to play. I don't want to risk playing a colony. I know some people will just play it here, but I don't like playing especially good colonies when I'm nowhere near sure that I'm going to win them. I don't want to torpedo my own game by playing bad events. So I raise population, I grab the swords because it's a good technology, and then one nice thing about the Colosseum, it's a bit niche admittedly, but 3 rocks will let you build the first 2 stages. That's actually kind of rare. If you think about the costs of the Age A wonders, you don't generally get to do that. There's Roman roads, and then there's Stonehenge. Basically all the expansion wonders, not all, but some of the expansion wonders are the ones that let you do this. And that's nice because on this awkward second turn of the game where there's often nothing to do because the first row is still Age A garbage from, you know, left over from the draft. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that. Oh, I'm thinking of the wrong turn. Sorry. Here we're interesting. I think I should have built a lab here. I don't know why I decided to do this. I guess if you build a lab, then your last action kind of sucks. You're taking probably frugality, but I think it's better to get a science than to build 2 stages of the wonder. But okay, I decided to sacrifice science to get my wonder done sooner, and we pass the turn. Sakic plays an event because with Confucius you always play events since it's free science. We all get some cards. He raises population, builds a lab. He grabs the rich land, which is a bit speculative, but what else is there to do? The other Age 1 stuff that came up, the front of the deck is not great. So fine, he takes rich land and frugality. Now the frugality I'm not a fan of because he could have raised his population here. Some people love to hoard food instead of revealing the extra consumption cost, but I don't like this because you're missing the opportunity for the free warrior and free temple. event cards, and then as better stuff does come down the line, you're going to wish you had spent your action. You're going to wish that you had paid your action debt and gotten that population raising action out of the way. In fact, on Cheater's turn, we pull up an event, and look, it's a free temple, so Sakich misses out on a lot of culture because he decided to hoard food. If you make that your strategy, that will happen guaranteed. It won't happen most of the time, but it will definitely happen some of the time. Now, Cheater's in a tough spot. He doesn't have any really great cards to take here. What are you gonna do? Well, I think he actually finds a pretty good play. I gotta give credit to Cheater here. He makes a play that I don't think I would have ever made. He actually pays 2 actions for Engineering Genius. And of course, it's tempting to be like, oh, well, this is stupid. You're just taking all these Engineering Geniuses. But he calculates that he's probably gonna get this university. And he's right, because I am not in position to put this under construction on my turn, and neither is Sakich. So he's gonna get this university, most likely for a single action, and then it's 9 rocks to build for 2 science and a culture. So it's extra culture, fixes his science without a worker, and he's got 5 rocks here to help build it. So even though his mines are at the lowest level, he's going to get a really easy early university. I think he made a smart move. Now the masonry, I mean, is it ever going to matter? Probably not. You don't want to take Leonardo because Leonardo doesn't do anything without labs. Okay, that's not true. He gives you a rock when you research something. So you could say, well, let's do that and make some science from the university and then, get free rocks. But I don't hate the avoidance of Leonardo and waiting for a better leader. So he passes the turn here. On my turn, it's literally impossible for me to put the university under construction. Not that I would. We flip development of planning just to look at that briefly. It's either 1 rock, 1 food, 1 science, a free warrior, or 2 rocks. I go for the rocks. The rocks allow me to make a lab and finish my wonder this turn, which is nice, so I'm not sacrificing more science. Now, what to do with my last 2 actions? Well, it's pretty much garbage here, so I just grab irrigation. It's a good tech, and there's nothing better to do, so I might as well pay the 2 actions for it. All right, we pass the turn. Sakich plays an event. It's free food. And he needs to pay out these resources here. He plays his frugality A, he raises population again, he grabs the knights, he loves the knights. Would I have taken knights here? Well, you know me, I'm not a big fan of knights, and especially with the Colosseum reducing the cost of the age 2 knights to the same science cost as the age 1. I don't prefer to grab knights. One of the things you can consider here as well, is there a point to taking drama or printing press? Are the right leaders in the game? And the answer is not really. So there's Darwin for printing press, but there is no Bach, no Gaudi for drama, and only Marlene for drama. Though Marlene is better than the other one, Charlie Chaplin, for just dramas, because she gives an extra culture per theater regardless of the level of the theater, and an extra happy face. So there is just this one leader for the dramas. You could consider taking Leonardo in printing press, but the problem is that Leonardo in printing press is not as good as Leonardo in alchemy, since you need people for printing press, and people are a hot commodity. Right now, he does not have a wonder giving him a happy face. His leader's not giving him a happy face. He has nothing to fix his happy faces with, unless he also somehow takes theology, but that's, starting to be a lot of actions. He also had to spend actions here raising his population. So he doesn't really have the workers to spare on the printing press. It would be a very greedy move. So I think it's fine for him to take the knights here. And then with his last action, he researches knights instead of raising population, builds a knight. Does he have medieval army? Does he have medieval army? He does not have medieval army. So it's just 5 science and 3 rocks that he threw away for basically nothing, other than turning off Boudica's power, I guess, and maybe winning some events here that he may have played if he played a strength-based event. All right, Cheater plays an event. We all get some free science. And there it is. He hit the jackpot. There's the university going under construction. He even has time to grab this Code of Laws with 6 science and play it. Perfectly reasonable, I think, since he's got the science coming in soon. I will say there's a move I think he missed here. You can actually grab Gutenberg for an action, replace Hammurabi, and then build this lab as a free action and 1 rock discount. I think that's a strong play here. Now you might say, but Papa Boris, then that's it, then Gutenberg's doing nothing. Well, sure, but neither of the alchemies has shown up yet, so you're not that unlikely to be able to grab it, especially considering that with Gutenberg, taking it from the second row only costs a single action. So I think that was an interesting play to consider here, though I also don't dislike the idea of waiting for Jan, Nostradamus, or Eleanor, which are culture-generating culture-generating leaders, instead of committing to this, which generates a little bit of culture, but not much, and has some more speculative benefits. In any case, he does not go for Gutenberg here. He raises population and builds just the lab normally, and then next turn he's committed to spending 3 actions with these engineering geniuses to make this very strong wonder. All right, his turn passes. On my turn, I don't take Gutenberg either. I play an event, we get a colony, which I win basically just by being starting player and having a defense card. So I pay my 1 warrior and a defense card to get a yellow token, blue token, and 3 science, which is incredible. Again, I pass on the knights. I raise population. I research swords, make a sword so I'm not falling behind. Notice that Boudica's 2 free rocks, because I was one of the 2 weaker players, pay for most of the sword. And then what to do with my last 2 actions? Well, here, I decide to just raise population and research irrigation so that next turn I can upgrade both of these farms. All right, I throw a card away, and it's over to Sakich. Sakich plays an event. It is border conflict, so I'm really glad I built a swordsman, not just a warrior, because otherwise I would have been the one losing a building. Instead, it's Sheeter who loses it. Sakich grabs Nostradamus, which is a great leader. He gets 3 culture as long as you play an event, and that's a lot. And then the other thing is nice, although in this particular game it didn't matter because he was also in the lead as Nostradamus. One thing to keep in mind is that being in the lead with Nostradamus is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily wrong to do that. It feels wrong, like, oh, I'm not using his power, but it's one of those things where, like, his power only prevents you from being the weakest. Actually having the most military strength makes you the strongest, and there's a distinction in game terms between being the weakest player and being the strongest player. With Nostradamus, you can have weird effects where sometimes the strongest player is also the weakest player. So being ahead, especially if you put events that specifically target the strongest player, is relevant with Nostradamus, and 3 culture just for playing an event is just still really good. So there's nothing wrong with Sakich's play here. He finishes the wonder, which is totally fine, and then he's out of actions. So we go over to Sheeter. So Sheeter plays an event, it's Barbarians, which sucks. I'm one of the 2 weakest, and I have the most culture at the moment, so I lose a population. This is a case where it's super annoying. I have 6 culture to 3 to 5. It's actually a case of first player disadvantage, because I have had an extra turn. I've generated my culture an extra time, and so that's why I'm ahead of Sheeter. So that's kind of annoying. I have to lose my idle worker here. It's cheap to bring back, so not the end of the world, but still annoying. All right, so Sheeter, he plays very principally. He builds the wonder using his engineering geniuses, and now he decides to keep building wonders. Now, this is, a little bit aggressive. His rocks are still at the bare minimum, and these wonders each cost 9 rocks. So it's not an action it's not a line I would have necessarily wanted to pursue. At the same time, I don't hate him for doing this because what else is there to do? There's actually not that much. You can take Urban Growth for 2 rock discount on building your AJ Lab, your second one. And then your other action kind of sucks. It's Knights or Reserves. It just feels not great. So, okay, you want to go for wonders, that's fine. What I do think is very weird and wrong is he goes for the Great Wall. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. Both of these wonders cost 9 rocks. But this one costs 2 extra actions to build, which is huge. Even when you have Code of Laws for your 5th action, 2 extra actions is a lot of extra actions. This also makes 1 less culture. It currently is making 1 less strength. And it doesn't have the ability of sacrificing units, which is sometimes very significant. So I think for the 2 actions alone, I think the Himeji head-to-head with Great Wall is better, just about always. So I do find it odd that Sheeter went for it. He throws away a card, and it's up to me. So I build a farm, or upgrade a farm. Upgrade my other farm, so my farms are done. Now, I could put the castle under construction too, but I decide not to go for any craziness. We're just gonna play it normally. The question is what to do with my last 2 actions. Well, one thing to consider is taking Jan here, because he is a strong leader. The main issue is that no one's played Fighting Band. Fighting Band is the one that you really want because you're getting 2 culture per turn just for your 2 farms and 2 warriors. And no one's played Fighting Band and I don't have it. Now, I did pass on Knights twice. Knights, as we've talked about before, is good with Jan because you can put 2 Knights on the table and get this medieval army bonus twice for only having 1 warrior. In fact, you can have 0 infantry and have 2 knights and be getting this twice for 2 culture. I think that was the right thing to do. Not to go for this necessarily, but just to play this, hope I draw the medieval army, but if nothing else, at least I'm giving myself the opportunity to generate some culture. Other possibilities, take a speculative rich land for Iron Later and Breakthrough, or speculative urban growth and breakthrough. Basically breakthrough and something else because my science does suck, so getting 2 free science would be nice. Or even potentially a drama, though the impact on this game is limited because the 2 leaders that care about drama in H2 are not in the game. I think, what is like one of the worst possible moves here, which is Stake Monarchy. This is not a good idea. The reason is there are still things I want to be researching that aren't monarchy, so as you'll see, I end up not being able to commit all my science to researching this government, and it's near the end of Age 1. It would have been better just to try to fix my science and then grab a government in H2. I do think that this decision, with half my turn going to this monarchy, sets me back a lot. So I pass the turn. There's the fighting band, so had I gambled on Jan, I would have been in much better shape. And Sakich goes. So he plays Raiders, so Sheeter and I have to lose a couple of resources each. He grabs Bread and Circuses to fix his happy faces. He grabs a speculative rich land and alchemy. Kind of a weird line. If you're taking the rich land, might as well take irrigation. But he prioritizes the science and decides to make this just a speculative move. He already had another rich land, so irrigation seems like it would have been pretty good to take here, but he prioritizes the science, builds a warrior. He doesn't have phalanx or medieval army, though, so he's just sitting on 6 raw strength from these warriors, and it's over to Sheeter. Now, Sheeter pays 2 actions for Saladin, which is kind of strange, because Jan is right here and generally a better leader. But it also does kind of make sense in this particular spot because he is way behind, and just getting 2 free strength from a leader helps him avoid being blasted into the Stone Age. He grabs irrigation for a single action, because why not? And he also takes a monarchy for 2 actions. This move I'm not as big a fan of. He's in better shape than I am, because he's making 3 science rather than 2. And with all these actions he has to spend to build the wonder, and the fact that he has Code of Laws already, with monarchy, his actions are more firmly fixed than mine, because I don't have the extra civil action. So with him, he could potentially play the game out with monarchy at 6 actions, but me at 5 is not really going to work. But I still, in his situation, kind of have the same analysis as on mine. I think it would be better just to grab the 2 science here and start building your wonder with your last action. As it is, he's corrupt, so he needs to make a warrior in order to not be corrupt, which means he's actually 2 rocks short of being able to build this wonder next turn, even if he commits everything to it. Alright, on my turn I'm sweating a little bit because I'm behind on strength, but luckily I got 2 free rocks from Boudica, so I used them to build a swordsman, and now, well, I could make monarchy, but then I'm not getting iron, and am I really going to pass on iron? Like, this is the problem when you have 2 science of trying to commit to a monarchy play. I put the fighting band, so now my strength is totally fine. I grab the iron, I research it, and I start upgrading my mines. We pass the turn. By the way, I did throw away the vast territory earlier, and Christopher Columbus is right here. So that was a mistake. Had I not thrown away vast territory, I could have taken and played Christopher Columbus and gotten a free vast territory for 3 yellow tokens, and that would have been huge. So I set myself back with that decision as well. I also keep and eventually play this rebellion, which also sets me back. This is a game of me doing everything in my power to make sure that I lose, because this is not a good thing to have kept. I should have kept the colony and made use of Christopher. Christopher's not a great leader, just so we're clear. But when he's in the game, I do think it's important to pay attention to that, because if you get an opportunity like this to get a good colony into play, it doesn't really make sense to throw it away. As it is, the age is ending, Boudica's going to drop off, so I'm not going to get the civil action back, and I wasted the opportunity. So we get a historic territory. I actually try to bid, but Sakich beats me with his Colossus +1 colonization bonus, so he gets a happy face and 6 culture for a knight. That's 3 rocks, pretty good deal. He plays alchemy, he rebuilds his knight, he grabs cartography and plays it, because I guess he's putting some more colonies in here, so now he's dominant on winning colonies, and he gets an extra strength. So we pass the turn here. One strange thing, though, or, one consequence of his decisions, is he doesn't get swordsman. Now, he had to research alchemy here because his hand limit was full. But he could have taken swordsman instead of cartography, and that, I think, would have been a little better in general, because swordsman and knights turns on a lot of H2 tactics. But if he had himself been putting good colonies in here, then it makes sense that he wanted to get cartography to ensure he got them. Alright, so the age ends. Sakich draws free cards to Colossus. I lose Boudica. Sheeter's up. Sheeter researches monarchy. He commits all his science, and he just builds as much of the Great Wonder as he can. With his last 2 actions, what to do? Well, there's a lot of good stuff here. You got swordsman here. You got alchemy here. You got iron here. He decides to go for iron, which is fine. It's a little tough for him to get all the science. He's only making 3 because he never built his second lab. He's just riding on the university, but getting up to the second lab and making 4 science per turn would have been kind of significant here. But, I mean, what else is there for him to do? I think it's reasonable to grab the iron and potentially play it later or potentially not. On my turn, I do need a leader, so I decide to play an event. It's 4A. I do get some free resources for beating Sheeter on strength. And yeah, we got to get a leader here, so I grab Eleanor, though I'm not discarding anything this turn. And then what to do with my last 2 actions. I think the correct play here is just finish upgrading my mines. But I decided to take Alchemy. I think it's a mistake. At this point, it's just a little late for this Alchemy. I still need to upgrade my mines. I still need to try to play Monarchy. I feel like this is just a little bit too slow. But I go ahead and upgrade a mine with my last action, and I'm ready to raise population, upgrade mine, and research Alchemy and upgrade it as well. Sakich is up, and he plays an event. It's free food for all of us. He raises population again, upgrades a lab, and upgrades another lab. A very principled turn. It's worth considering taking Code of Laws here, because he has 6 science. He could play it right now. And he makes 4 per turn. Well, he wouldn't if he had spent an action to do that. He'd be making 3 per turn, but, you know, it was worth considering, because he did have the science for it, and it would help a lot with his action economy. He elects to take a very principled stand, just do what he needs to do for civilization, and it's over to Sheeter. No event for Sheeter. He finishes the Great Wall, catches up on strength a bit. Raises population, grabs Maria Theresa. This leader gives you science and culture when you raise your population, and you also get free rocks for making and upgrading military units. So he's going to need to get food underway to actually be able to use her ability to a new effect. He grabs some free science, which is fine, and he grabs rich land, which will help him make the mines and the farms that he has here. It is worth considering to spend 2 actions to grab Cannon, because Cannon is pretty important, and Cannon works with the Great Wall. Great Wall gives extra strength per infantry and per artillery. But he decides not to do that. He just puts his leader into play and then grabs Bread and Circus, which, you know, may or may not ever be useful. He steals my fighting band, and it's off to my turn. So here I play an event. The event I play is Rebellion, which is you lose 2 actions for every unhappy face. I flip Call to Arms, so because I beat Sheeter on ties, Sheeter loses 2 actions and I lose 1. So with my remaining 3 actions, I'm not going to pass on a 1-action cannon. I take it, I upgrade a mine, and I raise population. I now am corrupt, so I make a 3rd swordsman to avoid the corruption, and then I pass the turn. Throwing away a bunch of cards and getting a bunch of culture with Eleanor. My culture generation is a lot better than it looks, because every time I discard cards, I get a culture for it. Alright, it's Sakich, and you know he's going to take Alfred Nobel. You know it. You know he's going to do it. He just loves the guy. Everyone in this group just cannot get enough of Alfred Nobel, or at least Sakich and Gangwon. Sakich takes coal, researches it. He's got these rich lands to help him get it. He also flicks in Nobel for the 2 extra science and 2 strength, and then he gets a coal mine. So his food's terrible, his rocks are getting fixed, his science is amazing, he's good on strength. What he's missing right now is culture. He needs to generate culture because he's okay on the raw value of culture from all the events he's been playing, and all the stuff that he gained from Nostradamus. It was kind of hidden culture generation, but he switched from a leader that gains 3 culture per turn to one that gains 0. So if he doesn't do something about this, he is going to start falling behind. He passes the turn, and we got Sheeter. So Sheeter decides to offer me a rock in exchange for food. It's interesting that he chose to do that, because usually the rock is the better part of this agreement, and he's only on 3 rocks, so wouldn't he have wanted the rock? Well, maybe he thought I wasn't going to accept a food when I had a giant stash of food. Maybe he thought I was more likely to accept a rock, and he just wanted to offer me something. Now, why not offer to Sakich? Sakich would have loved a food, and then Sheeter could have then kept a rock for himself. It's possible that Sheeter was afraid that Sakich is like the strength leader, but it's one of those things where like offering a pact to the strength leader feels psychologically wrong, but mechanically there's nothing really wrong about it. So okay, he's beating you on strength, but I mean, why not give him a food while you get a rock? I think that Sheeter should have actually offered the pact to the other player and taken the other pact side. He gets the masonry done sort of for free with Breakthrough. He grabs selective breeding, even though he has irrigation, which is fine, because selective breeding is way better than irrigation, and it's not that much more expensive. So I think it was correct to take an extra action to do that. He starts to fix his food. He makes another warrior, because why not? He makes another warrior, because why not? I think this is a bad strategy. I have seen this fail so many times. The Great Wall build a bunch of warriors strategy. Like, it works in H2, but it is not going to hold up until the end game, and you're just going to be cut out of the ability to be strong. So I was happy as an opponent to see this, because I just don't think that long term this is a good use of your resources. Just look at what's going on here. I've made 3 swords, and he's made 4 warriors. Okay, he's got the Great Wall, so he's ahead of me on strength by 3. What's that going to do? Apart from events, it's not going to do anything. It makes no difference. But he's tied up an extra worker here, and whereas mine are swords, and they're ready to be used in tactics, his are the still crappy warriors. He has not got a single military technology, so as soon as any kind of advancement happens in military research, he's going to be in the dust. All right, his turn ends. We go over to me. I decide to make a little bit of a strange move here. I take Cook. So Cook is basically just 2 culture per turn for me. Now, why not take Catherine for 2 culture per turn and try to get ahead of everybody and steal a token? Well, because Catherine costs an extra action. Had Catherine been here, I would have taken her. Now you might say, wait a minute, Papa Boris, why not just wait for Catherine to slide down? As long as you're not taking any of these cards, Catherine will still be here. Yeah, that's very reasonable. So Cook was a bit of a strange line here. My thinking was, this is the turn that I'm going to cash out Eleanor's extra actions. So I replace her, get my actions back to full. Now I can upgrade both my labs and research monarchy all in the same action, and raise population to avoid corruption. So this is as much about just getting the extra actions this specific turn as it was about playing Cook as a leader in particular. I'm definitely looking to get a better leader quickly in H3. For my last action, I grab Opera, because I do need culture, and Marlene is in the game. So, this is a good way to do it. It's a little bit aggressive because it's 7 science and I only make 4. So there is that to consider. I could have just left it there and raised population. Actions are valuable, and if this ends up being a thrown away action, I'm going to regret it. But I decided to take a gamble on it, and we pass the turn. So Sakic is up. He upgrades a mine, grabs strategy, which is just here for him at the first row. He plays it, of course, which is, I imagine, great coup for him. What to do with the last action? Well, takes Team Sports. He already has Bread and Circus, but Team Sports is better, and he literally has nothing else to do with the action. I mean, he could have researched Bread and Circus, but I think spending the extra action to take Team Sports is not entirely unreasonable here, even though he has low actions, because he's got a lot of science. He'll be able to fix his actions soon, and this is a lot better than the Bread and Circus. He steals the Fighting Band, which I played. This is a hilarious setup for Fighting Band here. 2 warriors and a knight, and it's Fighting Band. And then he passes the turn. Sheeter plays an event. There's Uncertain Borders, which sucks, so I lose a yellow token from my bank. He grabs Rifles, which is very smart. He researches Rifles, and then he does the thing where he just makes a bunch of rifles. I don't think it's a good strategy long term. He grabs Frugality and Scientific Method, which is fine. There wasn't much else for him to do, and so the turn is passed. On my turn, I grabbed the Cavalry because I desperately do need this. I passed on Knight, so I gotta make sure I take Cavalry. I then research the Cavalry, and I make one. I also make a Temple. This may seem a little weird, but I put Rebellion in here. So I definitely don't want to lose 2 civil actions. That would be horrifying. And I make a Cavalry just mostly for the raw strength. In addition, I got cannon, so I'm ready to go with this Napoleonic army, and my culture is pretty solid. So I just need to hang on in here, maybe fix my science a bit, get my military online with the cannons, and I'll be in a really good position. Sakic plays an event. We all get some science. He researches Team Sports, makes a Team Sportsman, and he grabs Selective Breeding, which he desperately needs and which luckily came to him at the 1 action row, and then he makes another Knight. He takes Rifles, which obviously makes sense. Why wouldn't he? And we are off to Sheeter's turn. Sheeter plays an event. It's Rebellion, which I put in here, and I breathe a huge sigh of relief. I'm so glad this is over, and I don't need to worry about it anymore. So he upgrades the rifles, raises population, fixes his science with Scientific Method. And now what to do with the last few actions? Well, he decides to take some science, which is fine, and cannon, which of course you should, and breakthrough for some more science, which is fine. So a perfectly solid turn here by Sheeter, and it passes back over to me. I'm definitely feeling pressure here because of my strength differential. But thanks to that free science from Knowledge of the Ancients, by the way, a wealthy territory pops up, and I try with Cook, but it just can't compete against this 3 colonization bonus on Sakic, so he gets these rocks for just a single warrior. So I'm feeling the pressure here, but luckily with the Knowledge of the Ancients, that 2 extra science means I can actually research cannon right now, and now boom. So with this Napoleonic army, I'm in the lead on strength, and it isn't just like a kind of superficial lead. This isn't like Sheeter's 16 strength which are highly illusory since it's coming from just having 5 strength from the Great Wall and all the things being warriors, which, is no tactical potential whatsoever. It's actual real strength. I can add a cavalry and a cannon and get the 7-point tactic again. My food is okay-ish for now. My rocks are great. They're fine. My science is low. So I got the strength. I got the culture lead as well. Culture, we're all kind of the same, but I'm making a little more than everyone. Sakich is still at 0. If I can build up on my culture and fix my science, then things are going to be really good. I'm in a very strong position here. No one can really hurt me. So here I grab reserves, urban growth, and I raise population. Was there anything better to do than taking these yellow cards? I think, you can quibble about it, but it's fine. Maybe spend 3 actions, put Eiffel Tower under construction. I just didn't like the fact that it was going to take more than a turn to build it, and Age 2 is almost over, and I'm really leery of building Eiffel Tower in Age 3. It's something that I've seen blow up in people's faces a lot, especially because I have Opera here. Now, granted, that does cost science, but I decide not to risk that. I just take some yellow cards for free rocks, and I pass the turn. All right, Sakich's turn. He plays an event. It is Crime Wave. Now, he and Sheeter are the weakest. They lose a blue token and 3 culture apiece. He researches selective breeding. He grabs rich land. He grabs efficient upgrade to help with these last upgrades. I am a little skeptical of these lines. He's got a lot of rocks. I think instead of taking efficient upgrade, you should have just upgraded either your coal mine or your farm and then upgraded the other one next time. I think it was also worth considering Eiffel Tower for him, but again, the age is almost over. He can build it next turn, so he's in better position than I am to do it, but he's also kind of low on actions, so I don't mind the fact that he decided not to go for that here. Okay, Sheeter's up, plays an event. It's a territory. I really try to win it, but actually Sheeter takes it on tie breaks for 4 strength. He throws away a rifle and a warrior and a defense card to get it. So he gets some more flat strength bonuses. He rebuilds the rifle, plays the bread and circuses before they go away because the age is ending. The iron and irrigation are also about to disappear. He raises population, makes an arena, grabs coal, so he's fine now with iron disappearing, and he takes efficient upgrade to help make the coal. It's fine, nothing wrong with this play, so we're gonna pass the turn here, and it's over to me. Now the age actually didn't quite end. We got emigration, so unfortunately, because I lost that yellow token to uncertain borders, I now have to lose a worker, which kind of sucks. I grab organized religion to fix my happy faces, and now I have 4 actions left to go. What is there to do? Well, yeah, if I had a wonder under construction, I could build the wonder. As it is, I can't really do that, so I decided to just research the organized religion and grab frugality and fix my happy faces now. It does mean I'm not getting opera next turn, but I decided that was okay because, again, culture-wise, I'm still fine. So I can kind of make more economical plays instead of having to, desperately race to make culture. It's Sakich's turn, and we hit age 3. So he plays an event. We got economic progress. Everybody gets some stuff. Sakich gets the most. He finally fixes his actions, so he is set with those. He's got a huge hoard of rocks and, to a lesser degree, food. What he needs to do here is convert his resources into culture, because he is going to start falling behind with his literally 0 culture pretty soon here. I think a good move is to make sure you take journalism here. You can research it next turn, start getting some culture, and build upon your science. But Sakich has other ideas. He raises population, builds another lab instead of going for journalists. Journalism and alchemy make the same science, it's just that journalism also makes 2 culture. He upgrades his last farm, and he grabs architecture. I am not a fan of this architecture move. Yes, his science is good enough to support it, but he already has a lot of rocks. And it's not just that he's making 7 rocks per turn. It's the fact that he has a hoard of rocks without corruption. That means that he doesn't really need the 2 rock discounts on H2 buildings. I think taking journalism in order to have an outlet for culture would have been good. This, I think, is the 1 weak move of his turn. Otherwise, it was a normal turn. Sheeter is up, plays an event. It's just points for science rating. He decides to take navigation to get some more flat strength and compete with Sakich on colonies, which I think is totally fine. And now he really needs to get this coal down. He raises population, takes engineering genius, researches cannon, and makes a cannon. So he does not get down the coal. He can do it next turn. I don't think this is the correct move, this Engineering Genius. I think if he had not taken the Engineering Genius, you know, in this case, he had other things that he could have been doing. He could have played this just to get it out of his hand. He had the Urban Growth and Cavalrymen here that are not speculative. This, I think, is a bit of a wasted action. But he really wanted to get this cannon down because he does have the defensive army for a big strength bonus. So now his strength is legit. This is like one of the best tactics for the Great Wall because all of your units get a +1 strength bonus. And Sheeter decides just to let the cavalrymen roll off. It's an okay play. With the Great Wall, I can see you just wanting to stick to this tactic for the rest of the game, and there are 2 tactics in H3 that also use only cannons and rifles, and this is falling off, so there's no need to hate draft it. So he just has a bunch of yellow cards here, and he passes the turn. So on my turn, I play an event. It's a colony. Sakich wins it. I come close with Cook, but I still just cannot quite take it. He just needs a warrior and some defense cards to grab the colony. And what to do on my turn? Well, I don't want to go for Gandhi here because I think I can actually beat people up with my army. So I play reserves for food. I spend my frugality to raise a population and I raise it again. And now I take the rockets. Now I don't need the rockets, but there are only 2 rockets in the deck. And by taking away one of them, I make sure that my opponents, like one of them is going to go without rockets. And that is significant because Sakich here does not have cannons. He has the rifles, but no cannons. So if the other rockets is buried deep in the deck, he might never get it. Now, Sheeter doesn't need the rockets, so you might say this is kind of a targeted hate draft against Sakich, and you might say that was not smart to do, but also I didn't really have much to do with my turn, so I figured it was worth it just to take care of business there. And now I need to worry about my rampant corruption. So I decide to build the army right now. Normally you don't want to build it until you need it because you're just spending resources and not getting anything for it, but it's avoiding corruption. I have not much else to do and I still have tons of rocks. So let's put it on here, lay the pressure on my opponents, and maybe even steal some events in case Sheeter was hoping to get something good out of here. I grab some reserves, pass the turn, and it's over to Sakich. So he grabs the Air Force, which makes perfect sense. He raises population, and then he develops an Air Force and builds it just for 5 raw strength. That's all this is doing because he doesn't actually have a tactic right now. He takes computers. He really loves computers. I don't know. I mean, he does end up getting a lot of science and using it this game, so maybe that makes some sense. Personally, I would have rather just taken Revolutionary Idea for immediate science without having to make any rock investment. So he passed the turn, and it's over to Sheeter. And Sheeter, on his turn, plays an event. It is Cold War, so he and I get 6 free science, which is awesome. He finally gets the coal down, upgrades a coal mine, raises population, makes another warrior because you can just never have too many warriors, and he grabs Engineering Genius because he just loves it. He has taken literally, and I mean literally, every single Engineering Genius in the game. He took it in Age A, Age 1, that one made sense, and then Age 2 and Age 3. Only the Age 1 grab made sense, though. I think the other 3 is just silliness. And then he grabs the Endowment for the Arts to get some free culture. So here, we have to pause for a second and look at my hand, because I have a war over culture, and I could get Sakich. I could declare war on Sakich right now. There's an Air Force here. I could research the Air Force and make an Air Force and declare war on Sakich. The Air Force here would give me 5 plus 7 is 12 strength. I'd be at 44 strength to Sakich's 19. And what could he do? What could he do as a 19 strength to 45 strength underdog? You know, without going into too many precise calculations, I don't think he could have caught up to me. Because with 12 science, he can really only research riflemen or rockets, let's say, if they show up, but not both. So at most, he's going to have Age 2 tactics. He might be keeping some Age 2 tactic in reserve, but I don't think he could have caught up with me. So, I mean, you could try doing kinds of like weird scenarios. Like, what if he kept classic army? Okay, so he like researches riflemen, raises population, blows up a mine, makes 2 rifles, that's 6. Goes to classic army, that goes from 0 to 16. So that's like 16 plus 6 is 22, and he's up to 39. Maybe that was just like a little close for comfort. Maybe I didn't want him to like then blow up another thing and make another flat airplane and catch up to me. I think it was worth declaring a war over culture here, because this was a good chance for me to get him, and at the very least to force him to like spend this reserve of rocks into military units so I could see what we were dealing with. But perhaps I was afraid of classic army. I decided not to declare war. Instead, on my turn, I think we have to click over here. 1 second. I think we have to click over here to finish it. There we go. On my turn, I just play an event, and it is good. It's refugees, so 3 points for me, 3 lost for Sakic. I gain a population, he loses population. It's very good. I grab the Air Force because obviously at this point that's a really good thing to have. I take the Science because I do need it. And now I'm going to take and play Opera. So I don't necessarily have to declare war. I'm doing well even without war. I'm making 7 culture to Sakic's 0, 7 to Sheeter's 3. I'm ahead of both of them already. He does have some hidden culture from Maria Teresa, and he is able to get like at least 2 more pumps out of it. But other than that, it's not that much. And I could just try to win on culture and use this army to farm any good events that my opponents put here back before I was the strongest player, and maybe look for a better opportunity to get a war snipe later on. So I take a safe approach. I'm still doing great. I am corrupt, unfortunately. And then we pass the turn. So on Sakic's turn, he raises population, builds another flat Air Force for just a flat 5 strength. He's not doing great on the military front here. He researches computers and upgrades his lab. So now he's making just ridiculous amounts of science. He grabs multimedia, which is smart. It's tempting to take reserves here, but I think it's smart for him to grab this because he can now obviously research it, and he needs a way to generate culture. Though notice, had he taken journalism earlier instead of architecture, right? This architecture was in a head-to-head with journalism. He wouldn't have had to take multimedia here. He could have just researched journalism next turn and gotten to work making those labs and then used the reserves instead of the multimedia. On Sheeter's turn, he plays an event. It's this, so Sakic loses a colony. It's not a huge deal for Sakic. He's just losing 3 blue tokens, so not a big deal. He starts space flight. He upgrades a warrior to a rifle to beat me on strength. He raises population, grabs reserves, so this guy has a lot of cards. And okay, he's got all the engineering geniuses he could ever want to build the space flight. He makes a cannon, so now he has 2 of these tactics, though one of them is out of date, but it is enough for him to be the strength leader. So now I gotta worry, like, is Sheeter gonna, declare war on me or something? I decided on my turn not to declare war again, and we flip civil unrest. So, which does nothing. Could I have declared war on Sakic here? Well, maybe. Here, with a war declaration, I unfortunately would have had only 1 military action left over, and that means that I would have been able to build only 1 Air Force, not 2. I think if I had the ability to, let's say, declare a hybrid war here, which costs only 2 military actions, then I could have taken Marlene, played Marlene. That would have canceled my own happy face issues. Oh, then I would have run out of actions. Haha, that's the problem. Then I would have needed Revolutionary Idea because I'm 1 off science on Air Forces. And then Air Forces, then I can pay 1 more action to make a warrior, or a worker. But again, I don't have the other action I would need to make another worker. So I would not have been able, even with a hybrid war, to get 2 airplanes online. So I decided, okay, let's not go crazy here. Let's just take Marlene. Let's play Revolutionary Idea. Grab Patriotism, so now I can do an extra military action after declaring war, potentially in the future, and I play her. So it's interesting, James Cook makes 2 culture, she only makes 1, because I only have 1 theater. So, I actually don't know why I did that. I guess it was it was to beat Sheeter. With Marlene, I get a free ghost cannon for the purpose of tactics, which gives me an extra 7 strength, so maybe I thought, okay, let's gamble a culture in exchange for potentially getting a strongest player type of event out of here. I'm not exactly sure. But I did pass on modern infantry and tanks. They are worth culture for me to research them. And I have a big stash of culture, but not much, or science, but not much science generation. So I decided to pass on that and just focus on keeping the science I need to make the Air Force. So Sakic plays an event. We all get some food. I get the most because I have the most happy faces, and I got an extra 1 for playing Marlene. Sakic raises population a couple of times, grabs civil service instead of military theory, which is interesting. Researches it, so now his civil actions, his science are just ridiculous. He researches riflemen, makes a couple of rifles. Does he have the classic army? Well, if he does, he's not showing it yet. He's keeping it as a surprise. So we pass the turn. Sheeter plays an event. And it is the territory, so I don't get anything for my strength. I don't bid on this. Sheeter wins it on tie breaks, gets some extra actions, And on his turn now, he grabs military theory, which makes sense. He's got plenty of science, so he goes ahead of me on strength now. He raises population. He's getting a lot of science and culture from Maria because he's getting so much food. He raises lab up to H2, raises population, upgrades the rifle, so now his tactic is current. And then he takes oil, which is a weird grab. I don't know what the point of this is, but I mean, what else is there for him to do? I would have just taken the urban growth here, or perhaps even the satellites. No, not the satellites. He already has navigation. I would have taken the urban growth here. Now on my turn, should I declare war on Sakich? And if so, which war? Well, now I have essentially 5 military actions to work with, thanks to patriotism. So that means, and with the prosperity food, I can actually get a worker pretty easily. So I can make 2 air forces here. And so I have 3 tactics, 2 of which are doubled for a huge strength lead on Sakich. So I decide to go for it. The question is which war to declare. If I do a hybrid war, then I get 5 less culture from Sakich, and I have a happy face problem right there. So it's a little bit awkward. So what I decide to do is instead of making things a little awkward for myself and a little awkward for Sakich, to just not make things awkward for anyone and steal more culture. And I play, we gotta do this again. We gotta go over to Sheeter's turn. Yep. I decide to just do a normal war over culture. I research air forces, raise population, play patriotism, and I need another worker, so I blow up this temple here, and I make another airplane. So now I've got a huge lead on Sakich. And I take revolutionary idea because I need science, and I pass the turn. Now, at this point, something kind of shocking happens. Sakich plays an event, and he flips arms industry, which I put in here. So he gets 2 rocks. Pay attention to these 2 rocks. He's got a crazy turn for us here, my friends. He plays military buildup for a ton of rocks because he is in last place, grabs rockets, researches rockets, makes a rocket, blows up a farm, makes another rocket, and he has the 1 copy in the deck of this specific tactic, which goes with the air forces he already has for 22 strength. So he's just 2 behind me. Now, if he had 2 rocks here instead of 4, then he could take the modern infantry, research it, and upgrade 1 rifle to a modern infantry to actually tie me. So the war is a bust. But because of those 2 rocks from arms industry, he actually has another 2 rocks to make another modern infantry, and he actually beats me on the war I declared against him, which is just crushing. Now, was it a mistake to declare the war? I am in a commanding lead. He's making no culture. I'm 30 points ahead of him, and I'm making more culture than he is. And I'm not like far behind my opponent, so it's not like I desperately need to steal culture from him to have a chance of winning. I have a chance of winning without the war. I don't know. It's unlikely for him to have had that specific tactic. So if he hadn't had it, he wouldn't have been able to do this. I think I made a reasonable move. But one thing to note is that Sakich actually messed up here. He actually would have gotten more strength by simply copying my Napoleonic army. Because this thing is 12, doubled once is 24. But the Napoleonic army is 7, doubled twice is 14, and then another 14 is 28. So he actually could have beaten me even without the arms industry. He missed that here. He noticed it later in the game. So yeah, it was a mistake because the rockets were already on the board, and I should have been able to count that he could make the rockets and then make the modern infantry. And then with the flat strength of the modern infantry, the rockets, and the 2 Napoleonic armies, he could beat me. I just did a shortcut. I did a mental shortcut of like, oh, I'm ahead of him by a bunch. And so therefore it's going to be fine. Had I just been able to like make another warrior or another worker and then make another airplane for another 12 strength, then I would have been okay. But in order to do that, I would have had to do hybrid war, and I would have had to be in revolt. So it's a tough one. I did blow up a temple, I believe, during this turn. Is that correct, or did I blow up a temple earlier? No, I blew up a temple on some earlier turn. Had I not blown up that temple before, I would have an extra happy face. Then I would be missing only 1 happy face here. Yeah, it's tough. It would have been tough for me to declare that hybrid war. I just needed to have more actions or more workers in my bank. But I didn't quite have enough to do it. So instead, Sakich steals 7 strength from me. Now, Sheeter plays Endowment for the Arts and gets 3 points. He makes a cannon, raises population, getting a lot of value from Maria. This is one of the best Maria games I think I've ever seen. He makes another cannon, so now he's got an extra 2 cannons? It's not an extra tactic. He already had 2 tactics and he still has 2. I don't know why he's making cannons. Oh, right, because he's planning to steal the tactic that Sakic just played. He can't steal it now, but he'll be able to steal it later and get 2 12s out of it. So that makes perfect sense. He grabs Marie Curie for some science, rocks, and strength. And what is it? I can never remember what the hell she does. Is it? It's science, strength, and culture, not rocks. Science, strength, and culture. There we go. Grabs reserves, grabs patriotism. He doesn't need the military theory. Actually, he can't take it. He already has it. So then it's back over to me. So on my turn, I'm kind of sad. I'm losing 7 culture, though I'm still ahead of him, so it's still okay. I decide to grab military theory and play it because I put the impact of strength in here earlier, so I do need to be just beating everybody on strength for those 14 points. And then from here on out, I just need to generate more culture. So I blow up my last lab, I make another theater to get an extra 4 culture, and I pass the turn. Sakic is up. He plays an event. We get colonies, which is not as bad as you would think, because Sakic actually lost one earlier, and he and Sheeter have been splitting them. He finally puts down this architecture. It's his last chance to do so. He grabs Sid Meier for 9 culture, so he finally fixes his culture. He gets the 4 culture for Nobel and researching 2 things at the same time. Grabs an urban growth and a reserve so he can make some of these age 3 libraries. And then now he figures out his strength is actually higher with the Napoleonic army rather than with that age 3 army. Sheeter's up. Now he's kind of behind on strength, but that is okay for him because he has 2 copies of this tactic he's about to steal. The impact of population is really good for me because I have raised the most from my yellow banks. So Sheeter makes an arena to fix his happy face issues. Grabs democracy because he has just a butt ton of science, and democracy makes culture. He gets Nobel's 4 culture bonus. He grabs reserves, and he makes an oil thing for some reason, and then steals the tactic that puts him equal to strength with me. All right, so on my turn, I play an event. It's impact of science, which I have 0 science on, so that actually brings Sakic now to spitting distance. I was really well ahead of him, but then I gave him essentially a 14-point swing, and now this is another 14-point swing that someone else put in here. So now I'm really sweating. I don't think I can win this game anymore. I'm just hoping I can keep second against Sakic. I am 1 rock shy of making the Empire State Building, although I don't even think there's any category here that I would qualify for. I don't make the most rocks. I don't make the most food. I guess I have the highest strength if I make another military unit, but I can't. So, yep, I just blow up my temple, replace it with a theater, and there's not much to do here. I just blow up a mine, make an air force for the flat 5 strength. Oh, sorry, it's 12 strength. It's not flat 5, it's 12 strength. And I just hate draft some cards, and I pass the turn. And I'm just hoping that this is enough to keep me in the game. Sakic plays an event. It's impact of strength, finally. So I get this 14-point lead back on him. Kind of makes up for the impact of science event. And then what does he do? His last turn is also not that significant. He researches democracy. He's not getting Nobel's bonus this time. He builds some labs for more culture with Sid, disbands a knight, makes another arena, brings back that tactic that he was using earlier, and just hate drafts engineering for the hell of it. And he makes another H3 arena. So his turn is over. And you can see that it ends up being really close. I would have certainly loved to not given him 14 points with that very ill-advised war. All right, Sheeter plays reserves a couple of times. He grabs multimedia, researches it. He builds the space flight. And now he doesn't have enough to make one of these libraries. So he just upgrades a farm in case someone put the food event in there, and he passes the turn. So now Sheeter, thanks to that wonder that he built and the fact that, he just casually generated culture all game without ever being bothered by anyone, is in the lead pretty commandingly. We get impact of culture, which I'm crushed to lose because I was the culture leader the whole game, and then Sid Meier stole it from me at the end. Impact of industry. Sakic catches up a little bit. Now it's really close, so I'm hoping these last few events are a wash. And, well, they're not. So impact of progress. Here's where Sakic's ridiculous science production lets him get 22 points. Now it's looking pretty bad. Impact of competition, he got a lot of arenas and units. So did I, but not as many as him, so I don't gain on him for it. And for the last event, the impact of variety, he actually crushes that one as well alongside Sheeter, whereas I'm a little bit behind. Now, had I had 14 more points, I actually still would have lost. So I would have needed to not declare that war and just generally do better. What I really needed to do, and I don't know if it was possible, but I needed to find some way to actually win a war on Sakic, and then I could have gotten second place. Sheeter, I didn't even realize was set to win this game the whole time. I think it's because he was never that far behind on me on culture, but he was building that big wonder, and he was really nicely positioned for events at the end because he had a well-functioning civilization, so he was in a good position to get points from the final event scoring. So I don't think I really had a chance to beat him. So credit to him. I mean, for all that I criticized his play, he whooped me and Sakic really good somehow, and that's a humbling experience here. But if I had maybe not made some of those mistakes I pointed out earlier in the game, and just had like a little bit of an extra nudge in some fashion, extra foods, extra workers, if I had an extra action somehow, if I had just been able to manage it to win a war against Sakic, I could have taken second place here. As it is, my second 3-player game also ends with me in dead last. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and or subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.